From the Chicago Sun-Times newsroom, I'm Natasha Korecki, and this is Off Message, our weekly political talk show. So today's very special episode, talking about the debate.
Good evening, everyone.
My name is Bruce Rauner. I'm here because I'd like to go to work for you.
Let's do a quick shotgun round. Who won, who lost, and why? Mary.
Okay, so I would have to give this one to Governor Quinn. I think he won because he's shown some improvement in his debating skills. He looked much more relaxed. His suit was nice and not rumpled. I mean, I think he just kind of did a really good job.
Was Rauner's suit rumpled?
Well, you know, he sort of had that. I liked the pin. The little ribbon was nice, but then he had something else going on. He kind of looked a little...
Too busy?
Too busy, yeah.
Okay. What do you... What did you think?
I don't really have any comments on their fashion style. I actually thought Quinn won also. I don't think it was a landslide, but I think Quinn was aggressive and assertive and broadcast the message, at least to me anyway, that he's not going to lie down and let Rauner take this race.
Mark.
You know, I honestly did not see a winner, and I guess most people know I kind of favor Quinn in this whole thing. But I didn't think that he broke through in any way that you could say he was the winner. He held his own. Rauner held his own. And as far as the fashion goes, I thought Quinn looked like a stuffed sausage in that suit, and I thought Rauner was intentionally with the button-down collar was trying to not look like the rich guy that he is, just trying to dress a little off so that he wouldn't look quite so prosperous.
Rauner looked a little nervous to me.
He was.
Well, and that was surprising. I think he really looked relaxed when he was in his realm, and his realm is business. I mean, when he was talking about business, talking about money, he looked relaxed.
I've led and built one of the most successful, most respected investment organizations in the world.
But when you got him on social justice issues like juvenile crime and what are you going to do with offenders and all of that, he was not relaxed.
We have unsafe prisons. We have corrections officers with their life and their personal safety at risk.
He looked like he was stumbling around trying to figure out the landscape.
A couple times he stumbled over words, but do you think people kind of like, well, he's not a politician, maybe they kind of translates to some people, or they like that?
I mean, he certainly came off as human, as a not a regular guy, but I think anyone would be nervous who hasn't had a lot of public speaking in front of the cameras. I don't think that was a negative. I think in some ways that was a positive. He didn't look super polished.
Did anything surprise you?
I thought they were both playing it safe. I mean, it was everything we've heard in the campaign.
The politicians in Illinois have been playing kick the can down the road for decades.
The folks who are millionaires and billionaires always want to shift the burden.
The only surprise to me was that the campaign is already on nuclear mode on television with the commercials. And they weren't really in nuclear mode. They weren't like, firing back and forth at each other as they have in some previous encounters that weren't really on television.
To that extent, you're a little surprised that they weren't going at each other a little harder.
I guess, yeah.
They weren't sniping, but it was like you were watching their campaign commercials all over again. So instead of watching two people having a conversation and discussing their disagreements, you're watching, a live campaign commercial.
So one of the things that Quinn kept repeating a couple times was the Rauner tax.
My opponent, in proposing this service tax, this Rauner tax on services.
This is a tax on some services that Rauner has proposed. Do you think the average person traction? No, you look confused.
I think that plays into that just plays into the whole narrative that you don't know what's coming. That Rauner has not been forthcoming in how he's going to address the financial issues the state is having. So I think that the tax thing is definitely effective.
When I heard him go into that, I thought, boy, we haven't been hearing much about that, and I thought, I wonder how many people are really tracking that and have heard enough about this service tax to have thought through the issue. Rauner isn't even talking about it, so.
Yeah, it's not come up since his first proposal. You also heard Rauner say a couple times, I cannot be bought, I cannot be bribed, I'm not going to take a salary, and I'm not going to take a pension. Some people who are tuning in for the first time and seeing a candidate say that, do you think that's a breath of fresh air for them? Or?
I mean, I think it's great that he wants to do that, but when you juxtapose that with his $53 million annual income, which Quinn brought up a couple times.
He doesn't need the money.
I think
he doesn't need the money, but that's the point, isn't it?
All right, but yes, but that's it.
But it's not a sacrifice.
But do you really think
right?
that?
But his point is that he's already rich. His friends are rich. Right. He's doing this because
But Quinn is not a rich guy either, and he's been in office 6 years, so it doesn't, I mean, it doesn't translate to, okay, Quinn is running for office because he wants to get rich. That salary means nothing to him. If he said to me he would take a salary and he donated to charity, I'd be like, whoa, you know, there's a couple of homeless shelters and a couple of, you know, domestic abuse shelters that could use the money. But I'm not impressed by the fact that, you know, he's not taking a salary.
I'm amazed by the number of people who will parrot back to me that he can't be bought.
I can't be bought, bribed, or intimidated.
You know, as much as it might want me to tear out what little hair I have left, I do think that that's a message that gets through. A lot of people just see somebody with that much money and they just think
he wants to do good. He's not doing this to get wealthy.
Yeah, and I don't believe he's doing it to be more wealthy. I think he wants to be powerful
And have a legacy outside of wealth.
You know, and the whole idea that people who are super rich are more honest than the rest of us, it just drives me crazy. But you know, it's effective politically. I believe that.
Well, I've heard some people say, well, so what if they want a legacy? That's a lot better than robbing me.
You know, and I think that's why he's going so hard on Quinn, on cronyism, mismanagement, patronage.
We have been controlled now for 12 years by a group of Chicago machine political leaders, Pat Quinn, Rod Blagojevich, and Mike Madigan.
That's Quinn's strong suit, that he's considered an ethical man. And so whether he's rich or poor, he's got this long history of kind of standing up for the common man and doing the right thing. And so it makes sense that, you know, this is where Rauner would focus. There is something to the idea, yeah, he's so wealthy that he doesn't need this job. I don't know if that's enough to vote for somebody, but that there's something that resonates certainly with people on that.
So the two of them were, you know, as you were saying, Mark, were kind of playing it safe. Is that a sign, and I've heard people say that in the past, that it's a sign that they're both in such a tight race that they're just trying to play it safe to not lose ground?
I think a lot of times you'll see this in the first debate. For a lot of people, it may be the first time that they've tuned in and listened to this sort of thing. So, you know, you kind of both feeling each other out. And Quinn was a little more aggressive. He was a little hotter under the collar.
He's adamantly against the minimum wage. Well, I'm adamantly for raising the minimum wage.
He got red in the face, right? And it looked to me like it was important to Rauner to not do that. I don't think he looks good in that way.
He wants to come across as calm and...
Yes, I think was important to him in that debate.
I also think that's actually more what their personalities are like. I mean, Quinn was aggressive, but that's not his nature. You know, he's more professorial, and Rauner, for all his pot shots that he sends through his campaign manager, you don't hear a ton of that coming straight out of his mouth. When you strip down things, that's kind of who those two are.
But on the other hand, you did hear Rauner bring up Rod Blagojevich a few times. Was that effective?
Well, I think that we're going to see a lot more aggression out of Rauner the next time around. I think he's testing the waters. Bringing up Blagojevich, I mean, that's an easy one. But I think he'll be a lot stronger at the next debate.
Tying Pat Quinn to Blagojevich and Mike Madigan, I think that's something that really is out there with people. They want to get back at Mike Madigan. They want to get back at the Chicago Democrats. That's probably the strongest thing Rauner's got going for him.
So what advice would you give? First, we'll do Pat Quinn, then we'll do Bruce Rauner.
Well, I think Pat Quinn has to, you know, he starts off a lot of his answers with, when they hit him with something negative, well, there's another study that says, you know, and I think that you don't want to use that. It was overplayed in this debate.
You didn't think that was effective?
Right, I don't think it was effective. So I would caution him not to do that. And with Rauner, simply not so busy in the presentation.
More simple.
Yes, please.
Yeah, yes, palette of clothing, palette of colors and stuff.
I'd sort of give them actually the exact opposite advice. So for Quinn, I would tell him to, you know, streamline his answers. He's a little loquacious. And Rauner, you know, a little too much detail. Rauner, on the other hand, is he successfully gets his answers out quickly, but he doesn't really say that much in terms of detail. I think people are now at the point where they're hungry for a little more detail, some meat on his plans. So if they could sort of switch roles a little bit.
That's interesting.
One, I'd tell Quinn to put a little makeup under on top of the lip. It just seemed like he had a little 5 o'clock shadow thing going on there. It didn't look good. I'd loosen up the collar by about you know, instead if he's wearing 17, I'd go to 17 and a half. and maybe a little, just an occasional smile, a little bit sense of being relaxed to, you know, just, you know, I'm glad he brings the intensity to this, but, you know, just a little more warmth wouldn't hurt a little.
And what about Rauner?
Oh.
Well, let us finish up by doing quotes of the week.
Okay, so this is an easy one, and this is a Rauner on that Christine Kirk lawsuit story that Chicago Sun-Times ran, and his answer was, "There's no story, there's no there." How many times can you use there? I just thought it was amazing that he could say there that many times and really not say anything.
Kate, what do you got?
Mine is from Lena Dunham, who is the star of the HBO show Girls, and she tweeted about Pat Quinn, strangely enough, and she said, "I like him. I think he's cute."
I gotta say that's one thing I don't hear very often about Pat Quinn. Okay, Mark.
I like to quote this week from Toni Preckwinkle, president of the Cook County Board. After unveiling an election year budget that contains no higher taxes, she said, "I hope you save some of that applause for next year's budget," in effect signaling we've got darker days ahead here in Cook County.
Right. I took mine from the debate. Rauner was specifically asked about, was it a conflict to give $1 million to Southside Credit Union after asking for community vote? And his answer was, quote, "It's not a conflict at all. The difference is I'm using my personal money. Pat Quinn has been trying to buy the election using taxpayer money." Suspect that didn't come out exactly as you planned. But anyway, thank you very much to our panel, and thank you for joining us this week on Off Message, and we will see you next week.